Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new edition of our Open Innovation Thursday. In fact, sorry, I will begin again.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Happy Open Innovation Thursday. We are, once again, reviewing and having these amazing 15-minute conversations with each of the authors of the Oxford Handbook of Open Innovation. It's amazing that this is week number 21, if I'm not mistaken, and we keep every week discussing with so many interesting people that have been part of writing this amazing book. Today, I'm in my office, so I can show it off. This is the Oxford Handbook of Open Innovation, 2 kilos of knowledge related to open innovation. My name is Marisol Menendez. I'm an open innovation practitioner and a little bit of a fangirl. I'm enjoying these conversations, and I'm really excited because today we are talking with Paul Oak, who is author of chapter number 18. Welcome, Paul. How are you today?
Thank you, Marisol. I'm very well, and I'm just delighted to be here and appreciate the opportunity to talk about this.
Thank you very much for your time. We are also very appreciative of this opportunity to discuss in depth the chapter that you co-wrote. And the title of the chapter is is Open Innovation, Innovation in Ecosystems, and Innovation Beyond the Firm. It's chapter 18. Last week, we discussed chapter 19 with Joel West, but today we're coming back to chapter 18. So before beginning, and we always like to do this, I like to ask our guests to please introduce yourself. Can you present yourself? Paul, can you?
Sure, happy to. So I'm a professor. Normally I'm in the University of Denver in Colorado in the United States, up in the mountains, but this week I'm talking to you from more of the beach on the East Coast of the United States. So I'm having a good time right now, but I've been a professor at University of Denver for about 25 years. And before that, I was out in California as a professor. And my research is, as I'll talk about, is a lot to deal with research and development collaborations.
Nice. This is right down our alley. We like to discuss about those topics. And of course, you co-wrote this chapter together with Joel West, who is also an editor of the book. We've already talked to him 2 times because we spoke with him in one of the first chapters that he wrote, on chapter number 5, I think, talking about the multi-level framework for selecting and implementing open innovation modes together with Marcel Bogers. And in this section, because we began part 4 of the book, beginning with chapter 18, and he's very present in 2 or 3 of these chapters. So how does this chapter came to be, Paul?
Okay. Joel and I have known each other for about almost 30 years. He was a doctoral student at the University of California, Irvine, where I was an assistant professor. That's where I started my career. And over the years, of course, Joel has gone on to be one of the key contributors in the open innovation research world. And a number of years ago, he started to see that there were open innovation consortia. And so we started a large research project in the pharmaceutical industry, looking at these open innovation consortia. While we were doing that, we started to narrow down our research and focus in on Alzheimer's disease and how these consortia were being used to organize the ecosystem around Alzheimer's disease, which there is no cure, there is no treatment for Alzheimer's disease, and there are lots of different efforts trying to make progress. We were, and as we started to talk about this ecosystem, we started to see it was really different than other ecosystems. Like you might think about Apple and how they control their ecosystem. This was very much governed by these different consortia. So that was part of our research process. And we wrote a paper that came out in California Management Review in 2023, describing these different consortia and how they're used to form that ecosystem. We also have another paper that just came out this week from more practitioner-oriented in Drug Discovery Today. And again, just describing how ecosystems and collaborations can work together. What that led us, our discussions of the Alzheimer's R&D, which is a very complicated context, we had a lot of discussions about ecosystems, and we had a lot of discussions about open innovation. And when the book was being developed, we said, these concepts have been around for 20 years, and they're real. And the emergence of the digital economy has really brought them both to center to managers' minds and to researchers' minds. And while there's been a few researchers who have discussed the two perspectives and how they might overlap, we thought a more formal treatment, more structured discussion of their commonalities and differences might be more useful. So it really emerged out of this long-term projects and a lot of discussions we had about what is an ecosystem, how do you organize that ecosystem, how does open innovation influence how companies relate to one another.
Wow, very, very interesting. I'm right now very interested as well in the ecosystem analysis. So this is a great moment for me to be discussing this. So let's dig into the chapter. As we said, the chapter's name is Open Innovation, Innovation in Ecosystems, and Innovation Beyond the Firm. What is it about?
Okay. Well, we looked at it and said there are these two long research streams, and they both came out in the early 2000s by Henry Chesbrough's work and Ron Adner's work on the ecosystem. And we said that they've developed, and there are some opportunities for understanding how they can relate to one another. So the first thing we started to do was to look at the overlaps that we saw and what are the commonalities and how they approach the phenomenon. Then the second part of it, and can go into that in a little more depth. Second was we started to say, well, are there variations in how ecosystems and open innovation are used with that? So does open innovation vary by different ecosystems? And then we concluded the paper with thinking about what can each side of these research streams and practice, how can they inform one another? How can they help one another with that? So when we talk about the where they overlap, we really identified 5 different areas they can overlap. The first was, we said they are very much both in what we call what other folks call too, post-Chandler innovation paradigm, meaning that Alfred Chandler's great work from the 1960s said all research and innovation comes from inside the firm, and that's where you get the new ideas from. And both of these perspectives are really, go into this the belief that innovation is done outside of the company, and that really firms need to be able to understand how to manage that flow of information inside and outside, and how to combine what they do internally with what happens outside with that. So they both work on that same perspective. And related, they are both second is that they both need to intentionally, managers now need to intentionally manage cross-boundary knowledge flows. They really need to be observant and careful about what information do we give out, but also how do we actively try to get that information outside the company back in, and how do we use that? This is maybe a little more prominent in the ecosystem research, but clearly open innovation is increasingly looking at how do you get that information in and how do you transform that information inside the company. Third commonality we saw is that to make these work, the different companies in the ecosystem or sharing information really need to align their business models. So you need to look at how each organization in that is making money off this, and how are they connected to the other companies with that. And the more there's alignment there, we can see that there's value created from these knowledge flows, or the overall value created by the ecosystem is everyone benefits from it.
And alignment doesn't mean uniformity, no? It means make sure that it's aligned, no, but not necessarily the same.
Yes, absolutely. They do not have to have the same business model, but there needs to be commonality so that one is not getting all the benefits and the other one is getting nothing from this benefits from that. And that's the related to idea is that both have a very strong emphasis on value creation and value capture. We've seen that in other forms of alliances, but the term, who creates the value and who captures that value are not always the same in an open innovation or in an ecosystem. And both perspectives really emphasize the importance and challenges of doing that. So that becomes much more important for managers than in the traditional hierarchical organization. And last, the commonality we saw is that both are really theoretically challenging for understanding what's going on. It's often been described as a new phenomenon, but really and it challenges their existing theories as to how do we explain this. And where we see some overlap is both draw from what David Teese has called profiting from innovation perspective, which talks about the strength of intellectual property, having complementary assets or technologies, having standards, and that both of these frameworks or both these perspectives can really benefit from applying this framework to understand how why they can be successful. So those are the five commonalities.
This is so interesting. I have one question. I don't know if this is ecosystems 101, so forgive me for that in case. If that's the case, is there a difference or any precision to be considered between ecosystem and innovation ecosystem?
You tapped into just the second part of our paper that we looked at. So very good question, which is there are different frameworks have identified different types of innovation. And one we looked at where open innovation is used most, it's mostly in the innovation ecosystems, and where it's like very much designed to build a new product. But we know there are other types of ecosystems that are used. Research has talked about, or people have talked about, entrepreneurial ecosystems, or sometimes called regional ecosystems, where Silicon Valley as the classic example, where the whole system of universities and government and venture capitalists all come together to build off of technology and create new technologies with that. There are also we talk sometimes about platform ecosystems, which is the operating systems, or maybe Apple and their companies with that. So it does, and most of the research has been done in the innovation ecosystem about open innovation. But in the paper, we go through and say, here are 5 different types of ecosystems. Let's look at what questions have been answered or asked, and what's the relevance there, because we think there is an opportunity for people to look into these other types of ecosystems and see how open innovation can really inform what's being done there.
Wow, this is so interesting. And the complexity and the dynamics, we even get into ecosystem venturing and ecosystem value capturing, no? Like building over the commonalities that you explained, while orchestrating ecosystems or analyzing them. At the end, you also need to consider all these dynamics, taking into consideration all these different elements, no? So interesting. I don't know what might be because we are getting to the end of our conversation, what would be the main call to actions or conclusions or ideas that you want the audience to get when they read the chapter? Both in the academic side, if you have any other kind of advice as well, it's also good.
Okay, well, clearly for academics, there's an opportunity here to take the 2 perspectives and combine them and look for open innovation in other forms of ecosystems. And likewise, the ecosystem work has often tended to look at other organizations in a very connected manner. And sometimes the knowledge that is flowing in isn't always due to a specific company. So there can be ways to expand the ecosystem side as well. And so we talk about how some open innovation research might benefit from taking a more structured approach to where the knowledge comes from. Like ecosystem does a very good job with that, but they could probably expand upon that. Alternatively, we also think that open innovation might benefit from a little more focus on the ecosystem research might benefit from looking a little bit more on the directionality of information flows. Where is it coming from? How's it flowing around the ecosystem? Sometimes, especially innovation ecosystem research looks very linearly at, first one thing happens to the product and then something else happens, and it moves in the sequential process when there's a lot of information flowing around with that. And lastly, I think the ecosystem work could probably benefit from understanding more about intellectual property and when do companies share that information, when do they not share it. Open innovation has focused a lot on when to reveal something, when not to reveal it, and to whom to reveal it to. And the ecosystem research hasn't really focused in on that as much. So I think from the researcher side, there's some very clear benefits from looking at it from different perspectives with that. And
this is so very interesting, and also you find these connections that arise when you are discussing this, like it might also be relevant to discuss competition dynamics, because in an ecosystem, sometimes our competitors, and also the trust dynamics that we discussed also in past chapters.
mm-hmm.
And also the different dynamics for value sharing, not only the IP, like how we share property, but also value in terms of customers, revenue generation, and these dynamics that might be a little bit more complex when looking at the ecosystem level.
Yes, absolutely. Great insights you have there.
Oh, Paul, this is so interesting. One of the things that we've been learning is that this book can be read chapter by chapter. You don't need to read them sequentially. And frankly, opening this ecosystem perspective, this is, I think, the first chapter addressing the ecosystem perspective, is bringing us now to the juice of the open innovation dynamics. So it's been very, very nice to have this discussion with you. And really, I have lots of questions. I will read in detail and then look into the research that you and Paul have done in the past.
Okay. Well, thank you, Marisol. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it, and I appreciate your time in doing this. And I look forward to having more dialogues with you and others on this topic, because I think there's a lot of opportunity here.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.